Hello, welcome along to Sportsbet TV. This is Paul Alster with you and delighted to be here. Looking forward to Saturday's racing across England and Ireland. Certainly we've got our fingers crossed for Ireland for the Irish 2000 Guineas, where they're going to be inspecting Saturday morning to see if racing can take place. They've had a huge amount of rain in Ireland and loads of rain everywhere else as well, which has affected calculations, believe me, for the selections. Well, the selections will be solely for Saturday, and we have 4 recommendations for you from Sportsbet TV, from myself. Very quickly about last week, it was a mixed bag. Azzano ran tremendously well at Thirsk. He was a good second at 16 to 1. He really did stick on very well once headed. I thought he was going to drop away, but he was keeping on again at the finish. So that was a nice each way. Sounds of Spring, a shorter price than we anticipated, went off only 3 to 1. Still ran very well over in Ireland to be second, but not good enough. Now, the other two, in the Lock-in Stakes at Newbury, Lope Fernandez for Aidan O'Brien ran poorly, but I rather feared the worst when the ground conditions started to deteriorate. Good to soft ground, he might have got away with it, but on the very soft ground, he was no good, and Ryan Moore did not persevere at all. And he saved him for another day. So we didn't really get a run for our money there, I'm afraid. The winner was different class, as it turned out. And then, very unfortunately, Kenzai Warrior, running later on last Saturday at Newbury, bowling along, leading on the stand-side rail. I saw his tail just flash, and that's normally a sign of something not being right. And a few moments later, his jockey, Jason Watson, started to pull him up, and something went quite badly wrong. So he was pulled up, was Kenzai Warrior, and we're just hoping that whatever injury he sustained wasn't too serious, because he's a good horse, and I hope to see him back and wish Connections really well with him. Anyway, if you're new to the service, my raison d'etre, if you want to call it, my modus operandi, or operandi even, is to try and find as big prices as possible. I'm not about tipping short-priced horses. It's easy enough to find 6 to 4 and 7 to 4 chances, you know, and say what a great tipster you are. I'm out for big prices, and we've had some very big wins over the last few months, 66 to 1, 8 to 1, 20 to 1, all sorts of prices. So I'm always looking for each way value wherever possible. And if you haven't done it before and you're new, please press the follow button and the bell icon so you're able to keep in touch with all my bulletins. Now, quickly, on to Saturday. The first selection is at Goodwood. The 140 race at Goodwood, a 1.75 mile handicap, just the dead 8 runners on soft ground. And Goodwood, a very unique course. Not every horse goes on this track. Prince Alex is the one that I'm sure most punters will be steaming into. He's won his last 5 in a row. He's moved all the way up, winning from class 6, moving up through the grades to class 2, winning at the end of last season at York in good style. Trained by Rafe Beckett, and he was a good 4th on his reappearance at Salisbury this month. He has a very good chance. He stays, he handles the ground, and at the time of this recording on Friday lunchtime, he is a 2 to 1 shot. He's got a big chance. He's definitely the horse to beat, but there's no value, I don't think, at 2 to 1. I think the value is in the outside of the field, certainly at the time of this recording, which is Nuit Saint-Georges, trained by the French-born trainer David Mwenwissier, and the mount of the Brazilian-born former British champion Sylvester de Sousa. Now, this horse has won 5 of his last 15 races, which is a very good strike rate for a handicapper, and he's won them at distances between 1.5 miles and 2 miles, so he will stay. He also has won on testing ground as well, including here over 2 miles in 2019. Now, last year, he won at Sandown over 1.75 miles, did that really well, and also won at Newmarket over 1.75 miles, before finishing 3rd in the November handicap at Doncaster on soft ground, keeping on off a mark of 88 over that 1.5 miles. Now, he's just had the 1 run this season. That was at Ascot a couple of weeks ago, and he shaped perfectly well until approaching the home turn, where he very apparently got tired. And to be fair to his jockey, I think it was Ross Orion that day, he just did not knock him about. He let him come home in his own time. He was totally eased down. So don't let the fact that he was beaten a long way concern you too much. That was his first run following a 6-month break. Now he's been dropped a pound. He's off 87. I think that'll be okay. That's a pound lower than when he was third in the November handicap. Now, David Mamwisia is a really good trainer. He does well with not a big yard of horses. And his strike rate at Goodwood is particularly attractive, 29% winners to runners strike rate. You combine that with the fact that he doesn't often turn to Sylvester Sousa. In fact, the last 7 times he's called on Sylvester's services in the last 5 years, and on 3 occasions, the horses have won, and that's a 43% strike rate. So my feeling is that at a track where he does well, and teaming up with a jockey he obviously uses when he fancies one, I think Nuit Saint-Georges is going to run a big race. Now, when I wrote my notes just over an hour ago, he was still available at 16 to 1, but I just glanced to have a look at the odds comparison sites and note that he's down to 12 to 1 at best, and that's with the likes of Paddy Power and Betfair. So those odds may come back, he may get bigger. Remember to try and bet with a bookmaker wherever possible who's going to give you the SP if it's bigger than the price you take. But at the time of this recording, 12 to 1 each way is pretty healthy, and that's my recommendation. Nuit Saint-Georges in the 140 at Goodwood. I'll move then north to Haydock, a track that I know like the back of my hand. Used to work there many, many times as a journalist and commentator. Very, very testing ground at Haydock, and their 225 race is a 2-mile handicap. There are 10 runners on heavy ground. Now, one of the key pieces of form is the race at Chester a couple of weeks ago, won by the Venetia Williams trained Green Book, who won in really impressive fashion, taking the Chester Plate over 2¼ miles. That's the race that was the consolation race for those horses that got balloted out of the Chester Cup. Now, he's gone up £10 with that very impressive win. Question is, did he get an easy lead? He led all the way in a race where there was a lot of trouble in behind. He quickened it up about 2.5 to 3 furlongs out, and a lot of horses trying to make ground were just blocked and couldn't make headway just when you have to make headway at Chester on those sharp turns. So all credit to him, he won well, but he may have been flattered. Now, in that race, Postilio ran on to be a really good second, and Speedo Boy, hampered twice at least, stayed on well to be fourth. I fancy both those horses to get very, very much closer on the revised terms. Other horses to note, Hiroshima won an Ascot 2-mile handicap last time out. He's up £4, but it was on a much better surface. I'm concerned he might not go in the heavy ground. Rajinsky for Tom Dascombe, who's got a great record at Haydock. He won a 2-mile handicap at Ripon last time, but that was on good to firm ground in April. He's gone up just £1 for that win in a 3-runner race. I respect Tom Dascombe a lot. I'm sure he will be hopeful the horse will go on the ground, but I wouldn't want to take the chance. My recommendation is a horse called FRANKENSTELLA, trained by John Quinn and the mount of Jason Hart. Now, this FRANKENSTELLA, a filly, she costs €480,000. I think probably the most expensive horse ever sent to John Quinn. She's by Frankel, as the name suggests, and she's really well related on the dam side to some very good horses. Now, last season, she made really good progress. She won a Pontefract maiden handicap of 2 miles 1 furlong in July. That was off a mark of 66 on good to firm ground. And then she went up to Redcar, where they have that very long straight. That was a 2-mile handicap. She won in very soft ground off 73, and she won impressively in August. And then she went to York later on after that in a 2-mile handicap, again stepping up in grade, and she won by 2.5 lengths off a mark of 77. So really progressive last season, stays well, handles most surfaces, but seems particularly well suited by testing ground. Now, she's had a couple of runs this season, FRANKENSTELLA. She clearly needed the outing on the all-weather, which probably wouldn't be her preferred surface, when she was 4th at Newcastle in early April. And then she ran just last week, it was, at York at the Dante fixture. And she was running a really good race, coming to challenge at 1.5 furlongs out when she was squeezed out. And a jockey had to take a pull, lost all momentum, managed to get going again, but of course the bird had flown. Now she kept on really well to be 4th of 11 in that race to Raymond. I thought she was unlucky running off the Markshill face on Saturday, which is a mark of 83. Now I'm really hopeful she will handle the heavy ground, which is the heaviest ground she's ever encountered, but she's sleuthed through very soft ground. So I think this improving filly is going to go really well. And she's generally available at 9-1 each way with the likes of Bet Victor, William Hill, 888, Betfred, Paddy Power, Sporting Index. So I think she's going to be at least 9-1 because there does appear to be quite a bit of money around for other horses. So she may well go bigger. But FRANKENSTELLA each way 9-1 is my choice at Haydock in the 225 Saturday. Now the Curragh. The Irish 2000 Guineas, a great race, but will it go ahead? I suspect that if the ground deteriorates, they will postpone and probably add the Irish Guineas card to the Irish 1000 Guineas that's due to be run on Sunday at the track. But I do hope they go ahead, whatever, either Saturday or Sunday. A great race, of course, a classic, due off at 3:20 on Saturday, but again, heavy ground. I believe they've had 35 millimetres of rain overnight Thursday into Friday, which they just hadn't anticipated. Now, the key piece of form in many ways is the 2000 Guineas form from Newmarket. Now, of course, it was good to firm ground, real proper fast spring ground, and it was won in incredibly brave fashion by Poetic Flair for Jim Bolger. He just managed to hold off Lucky Vega, beating a short head and a neck in 3rd. And then there was the trio of the Aidan O'Brien runners, Van Gogh 8th, Wembley 11th, and Battleground, who was only 13th. Now, the Aidan O'Brien horses ran too bad to be true. They just didn't handle either the course or the ground or both. I don't believe that they weren't good enough to take their chance in a classic. Now, really surprisingly for me, Poetic Flair ran last Sunday in France in the French 2000 Guineas and finished 6th there behind St Mark's Basilica. And it'll be astonishing if he runs again on Saturday in the Irish 2000 Guineas to run in 3 classic races in the space of 21 days. I think he's pushing it, even though he is hard as nails. And I'll be surprised if he's able to confirm form with those horses that finish behind him. Lucky Vega has had that nice 3-week break since Newmarket, was a Group 1 winner last season on good to yielding ground, but that was over 6 furlongs. And I think the jury is still out on whether or not he'll stay the mile in heavy ground. Lovely horse, really lovely horse, but I'm just not sure about him. And then of the O'Brien horses, you've got Wembley, who was second to St Mark's Basilica on soft ground in the Dewhurst last season. He should handle it. Van Gogh won a French, slightly substandard Group 1 at the end of last season over a mile in heavy ground. He'll handle it, but will he be good enough? And Battleground won the Chesham Stakes at Royal Ascot last year on soft ground over 7 furlongs, and he went on to be second, to win the Group 2 Vintage Stakes at Goodwood. So he's a very classy horse who just didn't run his race at Newmarket. All that said, I think that the horse that is perceived as the second string for Jim Bolger, Max Swiney, is the one to be on here. Jim Bolger trains, Rory Cleary rides. Is he the second string for the yard? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. You would think he must be the second string. One, because Kevin Manning is riding Poetic Flair, and Poetic Flair is a classic winner. But I suspect that Kevin Manning will want to stay loyal, of course, to his classic winner. Even though, of course, he partnered Max Swiney, when he won last season, the Racing Post Trophy, the Verton Futurity on soft ground. In fact, it was heavy ground when he won. This is a horse who revels on heavy ground. Max Swiney, big, powerful bull of a horse. He beat One Ruler last season at Doncaster, having previously won a Group 2 at the Curragh, beating Cadillac on soft ground. So he is one horse guaranteed to stay the trip and handle conditions. Now, he's just had one run this season, and that was behind the horse that I believe is going to win the Derby. That was Bolshoi Ballet's Derrinstown Stud Stakes over 1.25 miles at Leopardstown just 12 or 13 days ago. He shaped well. He looked a bit burly to my eyes, but he shaped well, but he just couldn't quicken with Bolshoi Ballet, who was very, very impressive. And I felt, watching it back a few times, that his jockey looked after him, kept him going, kept him up to his work, but he rode as if there are other days in 2021 for Max Swiney. And I'm really hoping that Saturday, if they do run, or if it's on Sunday, will be his day, because he's a lovely horse. Clearly, to me, he's trained on. And I think Rory clearly has the chance of a lifetime here to make a name for himself. He's won quite a few good races, most of them enlisted in Group 3 company, but he has a cracking chance of a Group 1 win here with Max Swiney. Now, when I first priced the race up, he was 10-1 with a number of firms. That has gone. He's now 9-1 just with William Hills at the time of this recording. The 10 may come back, but I think there's a move afoot here for Max Swiney. I think people probably share my view that the ground and the trip suit, and he'll be better for his reappearance, and he might be the preferred of the two Bolger runners. So good luck to Max Swiney and to us in the Irish 2000 Guineas this weekend. It is the 320 at the Curragh. And then my last selection, back to Haydock for the 335, the Group 2 Sandy Lane Stakes, 6 furlongs on soft ground, and another fascinating contest, in my view. We've got an unbeaten horse here in Dragon Symbol for Archie Watson. Now, he's 4 from 4, winning 3 minor races, a hat-trick, and then he won a race up at Hamilton over 5 furlongs last time. Caught the eye of a lot of good judges as a horse who could turn out to be a real quality sprinter. That was on good to firm ground, and it was 5 furlongs. This is soft. It may even go heavy by the time the race starts. And I just wouldn't want to take a short price about a horse stepping markedly up in class on a very different surface and over the extra furlong. So Dragon Symbol, not for me. He may go and win, but I don't see value there. Now, Peter Evans, David Evans, I should say, PD. He's got Rohan, who won a Group 3 last time out for him at Ascot. Great to see David Evans having another decent horse. He has so many sort of low-grade horses that he does well with, but here's a good one, Roshan, who has to be respected, but again, the ground I'm not convinced about, because he was so impressive on the fast ground at Ascot last time. Now, the Queen has a runner, Light Reflane, trained by William Haggis, won over 6 furlongs on soft ground in a listed race at Nottingham last time and is an improver. And last season, Martin Mead's very good 2-year-old, rated 107, won a couple of times. Has he trained on? That's the question. We'll have to see. The ground is also another question mark. And the Lear Jet, trained by Michael Bell, second in the Group 1 Phoenix Stakes last year at the Curragh, and then third to Chindit on his reappearance over 7 furlongs, ran a very good race. He'll stay, and he'll probably cope to some degree with the ground. He's very, very interesting. Now, one horse that I very nearly tipped here is the Irish Raider. Laws of Indices is trained by Ken Condon. Only ran last weekend when beaten less than a length in a Group 3 at Naas on soft ground, and was coming back at them at the finish, having been headed a furlong out. It just surprises me they're running him again so soon, and it seems to me they're chasing the soft ground. They seem to think the horse really likes this surface now, and I'd be very wary of Laws of Indices. It'll be a decent price, but eventually, and after quite a bit of deliberation, I've gone with MUJBAR, trained by Charles Hills and the Mount of Dane O'Neill. Now, my feeling is, having looked at this horse over and over, backwards, forwards, sideways, he could turn out to be the next new sprinting star for Charles Hills, who, of course, has handled so many great horses, including Batash. Now, this one is by Muhara and is a half-brother to the 2000 Guineas runner-up Maserat, and also the 6 furlong Commonwealth Cup Group 1 winner EXTEL. So he's beautifully bred, this horse. Has run 5 times only in his career, so is pretty unexposed. 3 of those times he's run on good ground. He's finished 8th, 4th and 8th. Not particularly inspiring on good ground. But his 2 other runs, the first of them was at Newmarket in August last year. 7 furlongs, soft ground, maiden race, bolted up. by 7 lengths. Absolutely sluiced through the ground. Really impressive. Then on to Newbury in October. He won the Group 3 Horace Hill Stakes in heavy ground. Again, absolutely loved the ground, revelled in it. Those were both over 7 furlongs. I think it is fascinating that they're back to 6 furlongs. He has had a run this season. That was behind Chindit, and that was over the 7 furlongs. He'll be better for that outing. It wasn't his ground conditions that day. He's got his ground over the 6 furlongs. He's going to get the strong pace that he seems to really need to show his best. And I think a lot is hinging on his performance here. He has the entry in the Commonwealth Cup. I think he's a 33-1 in the anti-post market before Saturday's race. I'm tempted to take a bit of that, because if he wins and wins well, there's every chance he could be a much, much shorter price at Ascot, especially if it's easy ground. So Saturday, Haydock 335, MUJBAR 10-1 each way is available still at the time of this recording with Bet365. There might be other bits and pieces of that price with other firms. I think he's going to take all the beating. Laws of Indices is a danger and Dragon Symbol, but it's MUJBAR for me in the Sunday Lane Stakes. Those are my 4 selections for this weekend. Let's really hope that the Irish 2000 Guineas gets to be run, and of course the Irish 1000 on Sunday. Fingers crossed for some really bold shows from our 4 selections. I'm very optimistic about these 4 this Saturday, and I wish you the best of luck, whether you go with some or all of these or none of these. Whatever you're betting, have a great weekend, and I look forward to you joining me again same time next week. From me, Paul Alster, bye-bye for now. Good luck.